What is up everyone, and welcome back to some more F1 22 My Team Career Mode. Last time out we did the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. It didn't go well. We had a mechanical failure, which you're about to see here was due to a problem with the control electronics. That's a pretty brutal one to have a problem with because you only get 2 of those, which means I've now only got 1 for the remainder of the season. So that's almost an inevitable grid penalty later down the line, but it happens. A little bit of R&D now. We're going to upgrade the... apparently we're not going to upgrade the wheel rim covers. That does come at some point later in the video, spoilers. Do a bit of G-Force training for Christian Lundgaard, just try and improve his stats. And then try and improve some of the team acclaim, driver acclaim. I think I actually get rid of that one because I figure there's nothing that can go with it. So yeah, we swapped that out for a chassis department focus. You're going to see here, I just checked to see if the what am I saying? If like the finish date of this particular activity is after my other upgrades, because it's going to lower the morale of my other departments to raise the morale of the chassis department. But it means that the chassis upgrade that I've got coming down the pipeline should be very likely to succeed compared to otherwise. Performance comparison, we're still the second worst team, and then we get 160 resource points for that mechanical failure that happened last race, but it doesn't bring back the points we could have scored. Here we have another event, this time in the chassis simulator. It's basically saying that R&D are on the verge of a breakthrough and they want me in the simulator, but I would miss a meeting with the chassis department. What should I do? I wasn't really sure how to play this because I assumed it was the difference between getting an upgrade or potentially lowering the morale of the chassis department. So I didn't really know how to play it. Eventually, I decided to do the simulator thing, but I couldn't really see any outcome at all. It didn't really seem to affect the morale or give me an R&D upgrade or anything like that, so I wasn't really sure what happened. You see here we've got some upgrades come through the fabrication process, and then we have another activity to do, which is about Christian Lundgaard, should he keep his routine or do yoga, and the yoga would give him better awareness. So I quickly decided that awareness was probably better than racecraft, because again, I really just want him to finish races. That's the big thing here. And then, yeah, so the upgrade now is being done, but it's not the thing I thought it was going to be. It's actually a major upgrade for the rear wing upper flap. And then I think finally, after we go through all of that, we are finally going to be moving into one of these Pirelli Hot Laps that we did last video. Last time out I did the average speed zone, so I decided this time I was going to do one of these drift exercises. Yeah, this one is a bit of a strange one because effectively it scores you based on a bunch of parameters to do with drifting. So it's like your speed and your angle and things like that. I was pretty good at like Need for Speed and stuff like that, but it's very difficult in this game actually, as you're about to see. I speed through the footage because it's a 3-minute activity and I figure you don't want to see 3 minutes of this. So I just got it on 4 times speed. But you can see, you know, quite easy. I'm, you know, going off the track a lot, going into the walls. I kind of start getting the hang of it after a little while, but this is, yeah, not the easiest activity in the world. I definitely was wondering whether I should have gone with the average speed zone. But if they do these Pirelli Hot Laps across multiple seasons, I guess I can always do the average speed zone activity at next year's Australian Grand Prix. But obviously that remains to be seen whether that's the case. I assume they would do them every season. And I had a look through the list, and it turns out there's one at every track except Bahrain and Monaco. And all the other 20 tracks have a Pirelli Hot Lap activity. So we just about sneak into the silver there. I actually went back and did it again when I wasn't recording, and I ended up getting the gold. But yeah, like I said, I wasn't recording that. It took a bit of practice. It took me like maybe 3 or 4 attempts to actually get it down. We eventually did it, and then I thought there was going to be another activity, which is why you see me go to the messages there, because I was holding R2, preempting I would get another go, like I did with the average speed zone. But there was only one opportunity to do it in the drift activity. So without further ado, let's get into the race weekend. Obviously, we got practice first off, and then we'll move into qualifying and into the race. My pace in Saudi Arabia was really good. I've never been a particular Australia specialist, so I was kind of anticipating that this one was not going to be as smooth sailing as Saudi Arabia was. The weather looks like it's staying dry, but you know, who can say for certain? It's going to be a wet practice too, but I probably won't drive that, so it probably won't affect me too much. And yeah, let's get into the practice session. So I don't really know, but I was a bit nervous with this track just because of the updates to the track since the last game. Obviously, the updates in Australia have existed for a couple years now, I think, or at least a year or something like that. If there had been an Australian Grand Prix in 2021, it would have been a similar deal. But yeah.
Try to nail as many corner gates as you can. The faster you get through each corner, the higher the score. You'll need to deploy your DRS in the DRS zone as well.
So it's the new the sort of removed chicane, because obviously they had a chicane and then they got rid of it. And that removed like a couple of corners and took several seconds off the lap, and then they've reprofiled one of the turns at the end of the last DRS zone, or I guess it's actually the middle DRS zone, but I kind of consider the quote-unquote last one to be the first one because it kind of extends into the start of the next lap. So, but the one going into, I believe it's, I mean, you can count here, I believe it's turn 11. That is the reprofiled corner, and I've never driven that. I've never driven this complex here because there obviously used to be a chicane here. So this is kind of a new experience for me, and that's why I'm showing you my acclimatization lap, because I really just wanted to sort of highlight me getting used to the track first and foremost. I did do the other practice programs. I always give all three of them a go, but yeah, this is the lap I thought I would show you. Honestly, it wasn't going badly. I massively overshoot that corner because I'm kind of not really anticipating the shape of it. It is drastically different to how it used to be, and it catches me off guard pretty much the whole weekend. You know, I have lots of laps where I go too deep or I don't go deep enough because I'm anticipating it too much. It's a really tricky corner to get right. The angle of it is very, very strange.
Fantastic. You obviously have a really good understanding of this circuit.
So yeah, that was my acclimatization lap, and then I'm just showing you here the telemetry from the race strategy program. My tire wear only a little bit lower than expected. My lap times are a little bit inconsistent. As you can see, my fifth lap was very not good. But yeah, that was practice, and as you're about to see.
Time to remind ourselves of our top three, who are Leclerc, Verstappen, and Robinson. What an incredible practice session that was. But the fun doesn't stop here though. Join us again as the rest of the weekend unfolds.
Somehow, by some miracle, I managed to make it to P3. I assume it's just because people weren't running, you know, and there's a lot of cars here obviously who are only running medium tyres, and I'm sure people aren't pushing 100% because it's only P1, whereas for me, my qualifying pace lap actually didn't even meet the green target to get any resource points at all, never mind the sort of extension target. So I was quite surprised to see myself up in P3. Lundgaard down in P22, but I won't read too much into it. You get the resource points, and we got some development boosts here. This engine upgrade, the spark plugs, I actually think is going to be free very soon if I don't invest in it eventually, so I'm kind of just biding my time. But yeah, nothing too important happening in practice. Email from Mark here, just talking about turn 10, which is the very fast chicane that comes before the reprofiled turn 11 in the DRS zone. It's a difficult corner. It's one I do get wrong a couple times throughout the weekend, as you'll see. Yeah, it's a very punishing corner, so I definitely think that was a good one to point out. And then again, he also talks about turn 5, which is one I have a tendency to go over the track at, and it's kind of like it's kind of a bit amusing almost that he would bring that one up in particular because of how many warnings I end up getting there. But you know, we'll talk more about that when we get to it. And now it's time to get into qualifying. So here we are at the end of my first flying lap. It's not that good of a lap. It is in the 120s, but I mean, all things considered, you know, I definitely feel like I could have done a better lap than that. And then this is me on my second flying lap, and you see I extend the track at exactly where I said I would, and I get the lap time deleted. But I was already 4/10 down at that point because I realised I was not on a new compound of tyres, that's still something I'm getting used to, is the fact that you will just be like 5/10 a lap slower if you go on the same tyres for multiple laps. No real surprises out. I guess Ricciardo at his home race is a bit disappointing, 17th. I was very happy with Lundgaard P19. I think that was a pretty solid performance, but yeah, even though I didn't improve on my second lap, I just managed to sneak through in P16, so I was pretty stoked about that. Albon in P22 was a bit of a surprise, being out-qualified by Latifi by over a second. But, you know, I'm sure he'll be able to make up some places in the race, especially because this is a track not too far away from his home of Thailand. Here we are on my first flying lap of Q2, and you see Tsunoda gives me a big block there. I'm surprised he didn't get penalised for that, honestly, but I don't know what else he could have done. And that means I set a 120.8, probably one of the slower laps. That was about as fast as my fastest practice lap, so that's when you know, like, there's definitely time on the table. And then, here we go. So we're into my second lap of Q2 now, and I will show you the whole thing, because this is probably, I mean, I won't spoil it for you, but this is definitely one of the better laps that I have driven during my time playing these games, at least around Australia. Ironically, is Tsunoda ahead of me again, like he was in the first flying lap of Q2, but, well, I guess he just needs to be flying as well, and then we shouldn't have any problems. I'm already 4/10 up off the back of where I got blocked by Tsunoda. And then coming back through here, I'm just making up time slowly but surely. I can't actually remember where the sort of big gains in this lap were. Going through turn 9 and 10 now, and you see obviously I got that a lot more correct than I must have got it in my first flying lap, because I made up another 6/10, 7/10 there. Decent run through the reprofiled turn 11, and then these final few corners probably aren't as good as in my first lap, but by this point it doesn't matter. Mark gives me a few words of encouragement you probably just heard, saying if we don't get into the top 10, we'll be out, which I found quite funny given by how much I was up by that point. But yeah, we improved by 1.2 seconds. I think that's a 119.6, and it's good enough for P10. I was really happy about that, because I really didn't think we had a shot of getting into Q3. From what I know about Australia, historically it's never been one of my better circuits, but I kind of came to the realization that maybe with the removed chicane, maybe it's a slightly stronger circuit for me, because that corner always used to give me troubles. I felt like the AI had vastly superior traction to me out of that corner. You know, they would always gain on me into what is now turn 9, but I think historically was, you know, turn 11 maybe. I can't remember for certain though, but yeah. Again, no real shocks this time out in qualifying, probably for the first time this series actually, because the last couple of times there's always been at least one shock exit, but this time I don't really think there was a shock exit as such. Here we are coming to the end of my first flying lap of Q3. It's a similar time to what I set in Q2 actually, a 119.6. It was a decent lap, but it wasn't, you know, nothing amazing. And then, well, you'll never guess what I did on my second flying lap. I forgot to change the tyres, and so it was just a complete non-issue. I went out for a very short period of time, and then I quickly realised what I'd done. I wasn't improving at all, so I went back into the pits. And it's as simple as that.
Finished. It's time to remind ourselves once again of our top 3: Leclerc, Sainz, and Max Verstappen. Goodbye for now then, but really we're just getting started. Make sure to join us again for Lights Out tomorrow.
So yeah, good enough for P8 in the end, which I was a little bit surprised by, honestly, because I was kind of, you know, half anticipating, oh, it's, you know, only going to be P10, because I only got P10 in Q2 with a very similar time to what I set. But yeah, had a couple of people not go quite as fast as I was expecting, perhaps. like I said, Lundgaard P19 is a pretty good lap as well. Me starting P8, I'm sure, like in Saudi, I'm only going to go backwards off the back of that. But we'll see what happens. Who knows? Maybe I'll have another miracle start and we'll be able to get up into P1 on lap 1 from 8th place. It's unlikely, but we will see what happens. But yeah, I was generally, at this point, I was feeling a lot more optimistic than I felt at the beginning of the race weekend. You know, like I said, this has never been one of my strength circuits. It's always been not a weaker one, but a kind of average one for me. So to be in this position is really good.
Welcome to the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne for what no doubt will be an intense day of racing. Here we are then at the Albert Park circuit, 3.28 miles of bumpy city streets, but not a lot in the way of elevation changes. The circuit goes all the way around the lake, taking in 14 corners. Note the DRS zones into turns 1, 3 and 13. They'll offer our drivers a number of good opportunities to overtake.
Well, that's interesting. So he still says 13 because clearly they haven't updated that cutscene, but it says 11 on the subtitles. That's actually quite interesting.
And a very happy Carlos Sainz will start second. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Verstappen, Perez, and Sir Lewis Hamilton, and Bottas, Fernando Alonso, Robinson, Russell, and Yuki Tsunoda, Mick Schumacher, Ocon, Kevin Magnussen, and Norris, Vettel, Gasly, Daniel Ricciardo, and Guan Yu Zhou, Lundgaard, Stroll, Latifi, and Alex Albon picks up the last spot on the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. Natalie Pinkham joins me once again in the commentary box. It's fantastic to have you with us today. I'm curious though, how do you think the drivers stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the rundown into turn 1, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It'll keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
Natalie Pinkham's on the commentary team today.
Don't let me down.
No difference between projected and personalized, so it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Now, yeah, time to get into the formation lap in the build-up to the race. For some reason, Russell and Tsunoda seem to have swapped places from qualifying, but I won't read into it too much.
Right is good. Gearbox is responding normally. Make sure to warm up the tyres and brakes. Warm the tyres and brakes throughout the lap, please.
So yeah, I just, if anything, my kind of aim here is to hold position and try not to get into too many first lap incidents or anything like that. Just you know, see if I can. Maybe I lose a place to Russell because he's in a Mercedes, but if I can stay ahead of Tsunoda and you know, the very hungry pack behind me, that would make me pretty happy.
Now we need to make sure we get a great launch as the race starts.
So yeah, the grid's reforming.
The start sequence will begin as soon as the grid is formed. Be ready with the clutch.
And we're just going to go straight into replay mode here because I don't really want to show you from my perspective what happens on this first lap. You can kind of see I get kind of blocked by Bottas there, and then everything disintegrates very quickly. The front wing loss there is not me, but you see Russell's ahead of me already, and when you see me come through in the background, you'll see I'm now kind of side by side with Tsunoda. He goes for a move up the inside and I'm kind of powerless to stop him. Gasly does the exact same thing. Then who's behind me now? It is Kevin Magnussen. It's either him or Schumacher. It's kind of hard to tell. I can't remember. I go a bit wide at turn 5. You might not be surprised to learn. And then I go wide again at turn 6 and he's able to go around my outside like it's no one's problem. Then we have Sebastian Vettel behind me, as well as the other Haas of, I'm going to say it's Mick Schumacher, even though I'm not 100% sure. Vettel goes up the inside as we run down to turn 9. Schumacher goes up the inside as we run down to turn 9. I actually am able to get him back as we go around the outside of him. But then, you know, he's got superior speed as we go on the run down to turn 11, as does Esteban Ocon behind. I kind of get caught in the middle. I'm in a bit of a no man's land, and I have to see the position. That gives Lance Stroll and Lando Norris a run on me around the outside. And yeah, that was probably the worst first lap of a Grand Prix I have ever driven in Formula One games. It's ironic, really, because it's not too dissimilar to the first race that we did, where I made up 8 places on the opening lap, but I lost 8 places on the opening lap in this occasion. Yeah, Ricciardo and Latifi also got past me at the beginning of lap 2, and I just decided I'd had enough. I get a bit of a run on Latifi here, and you can see I'm going around the outside of him as we go on the run down to turn 11, the reprofile turn 11. But in my haste, I get onto the grass a little bit, I overshoot the corner, and that allows not only him, but also Zhou Guanyu to go through. And Alex Albon is starting to make a run on me at the moment, but I wasn't prepared to give the place up to Alex that easy. You know, he's been warring with me. As Latifi and Zhou make contact in front of me, and that allows me to get back past them. They were really squabbling with one another. I think both of them probably got damage from that exchange, because that was pretty brutal between the two of them. I definitely saw some, you know, bits of front wing flying and whatnot. Let's take a look at lap 5 now. I'm just sort of trundling along in a bit of a no man's land. Ricciardo and Stroll on the soft tyres especially, just way faster than me, so that's a bit of a non-issue. And then there's a yellow flag behind me, and I was thinking maybe it was Lundgaard for a second, but fortunately he seems to still be going. The yellow flag's a little bit behind him, and I get the notification that Sergio Perez is out of the session. I didn't even realise he was behind me. I think he must have come into the pits due to some first lap contact. If you remember on the first lap, there was a replay of the front wings going flying, and I was wondering whether he was one of those people. And then his not particularly reliable at this stage in career mode Red Bull powertrain, it just dies on him. You see the smoke coming out of the back of the engine, classic engine failure, and yeah, nothing you can really do about that. We move on to lap 8. And you see I'm actually a lot closer to Ricciardo and Stroll now. I'm sort of almost a second behind them, not quite in the DRS range. I've maintained the gap to Albon behind, which is good, because I think if they give me the option, he's probably who I would select as my rival at this stage in the career mode. He's someone who I feel like I've been close to pace-wise. But yeah, Ricciardo and Stroll, you can see that Stroll and Vettel have a little bit of a wheel-to-wheel battle there, and that allows me to close them down into the DRS range. Let's have a look at this again from Stroll's perspective. He goes up the inside at turn 11. They do go wheel-to-wheel through the corner, but Stroll just loses out a tiny bit, and you know, it's a shame for him, but what can you do? But it means that I am now, you know, directly behind Ricciardo, basically, as Stroll comes into the pits. So I'm asking myself, like, you know, will I be able to make this move happen on him? Perhaps I can get past Vettel, who's on dying soft tyres. And, you know, there's not really many threats around me, so I can go on the attack, at least initially, because I don't think Alex Albon's going to catch up on me anytime soon. They do seem to just be vastly superior through the straights and through the corners, which, you know, gives me, it leaves me with 2 options, which is either I'm not driving particularly well, which I find difficult to believe, given that, you know, in qualifying I've been doing particularly well compared to where I thought I would be and where the game seems to anticipate me being. But then, yeah, it doesn't seem to work out for me come race day. Vettel goes wide a little bit, I believe that is at turn 6 or 7, and that allows Ricciardo to get a run on him. You see they're kind of swapping 13th and 14th as they go through parts of this lap. It's really interesting. They are even on wheel-to-wheel pace. Vettel somehow makes a move up the inside. Usually the person who has the outside line there I would say is favoured, but it allows me to get a bit of a run on them down into turn 11. I go up the inside, I dive down the inside, and I have a little bit of contact with Vettel there, nothing too hefty, but it does mean I lose out, unfortunately. No damage. Like I said, I'm almost certain that the front wings in this game are more resilient than they've been, because I promise you this is on simulation damage, so I'm very, very surprised that I've yet to come away with a broken front wing from any of these altercations. What that whole ordeal with Ricciardo and Vettel resulted in, though, is Albon now only being 1 second behind me.
Careful, so you're going to start losing some tyre grip anytime now.
And let's have a look at that incident again. So you see, I'm a little bit back, but I think I can make the move stick. I can do a Ricciardo-esque dive bomb, but it doesn't work out. You know, they've got the outside line, which means they have superior pace through the corner. I would have to, you know, it'd have to be a really big move to kind of cut them off. It would be poor racing. But we come on to lap 12 now, and Ricciardo's not pulled away, which honestly surprised me. You know, I expected he would definitely have the rub of the green this weekend. And so to see that I was kind of closing him down still was really surprising to me, especially given, you know, you remember my first lap did not go well whatsoever. I was very much anticipating, you know, most of these cars around me would be faster. But as we go on the rundown to turn 9, you see I'm closing him down with the delta just about, not so much anymore, kind of keeping it even. But, you know, I'm only 2/10 behind him, so I'm thinking, could I potentially size up a move on him in turn 9? Doesn't quite materialize, I'm not quite close enough, but it does mean I'll have the DRS on the run down into turn 11. And honestly, this is a really, I've discovered this is a really neat overtaking zone. As I come down into turn 11, I go around the outside so as to not have a repeat of what happened on lap 9 with him and Vettel, and I make the move stick this time. So yeah, I was pretty happy with that overtake. Here we are on lap 13, going through this new section which has been changed for this year's race. And Ricciardo with the superior straight line speed on me, maybe he's burning a bit of his battery, whereas you can see I don't really have any left. And he goes around the outside at turn 9 and just about manages to make the move stick. I have to get out of it a little bit, actually, but he also gets the DRS as a result. So yeah, it was pretty much a non-issue at that point. There was no way I was going to catch him back into turn 11. I just had to consign myself to this P13 fate. And yeah, Albon behind, and Gasly has now caught up to this train, as well as a Ferrari, which I believe is Carlos Sainz, who had already pitted at this point. I think he started on softs, possibly. But now we're into the pits, and so one thing I've discovered about this game is that in order to get an optimal pit stop, you want to press it around 0.4, because if you try and press it as close to the thing as possible, there seems to be some kind of delay with the way it works, and so if you leave it to like 0.2, 0.3, it will kind of just say that you've turned in too late, even if you have left it to that point. I don't know if it's the game trying to like account for human error or something like that, but yeah, if you want an optimal pit stop in this game, I'd recommend pressing it around 0.4. So the next thing here is obviously the tyres that I've come out on are cold, whereas Vettel pitted I think 4 or 5 laps ago at this point, so he's got, you know, hot tyres by this point, and I'm still kind of struggling to get heat in the tyres. I think at some point maybe I bring up the MFD with the tyre thing. Yeah, here we go. You see they're still not even in 80 degrees, and I'm kind of already like halfway around the lap. So I was really struggling, and he kind of gets the run on me into turn 9. I try and keep my foot in it, but it doesn't quite work out the way I intended to. I make a little bit of contact with the back of him, but I just about managed to hold on to my front wing still. Lots of contact this race, very scrappy race. But I managed to go out the inside with the DRS into turn 12, and I make the move stick on him this time. What I couldn't do on lap 9, I believe it was. And you see Christian Lundgaard there now coming into his pit stop, as well as Carlos Sainz again, which I can only assume was due to some kind of incident with his front wing. And now we're going to see this this pretty awesome battle with Vettel, actually. You see he goes up my inside as we go through the new section, where the old turn 7 and 8, I think, used to be. Or maybe it's 9 and 8 and 9, something like that, I don't remember exactly. Round my outside at turn 9, I go into the back of him as we go through turn 10, but then I have the DRS. I'm burning pretty much all of my battery to try and take this place back. I didn't want to concede the place to Vettel, and I think he actually locked up there. I didn't see that, but I think there was a small lock up there for him, and that meant that I was able to get past him going into turn 11 this time. I'm a really big fan of the reprofiled turn 11, actually. It seems to provide a lot more opportunity for overtaking, by what I can tell. Albon goes up my inside with DRS on lap 16, and I just about stay ahead of him, but as you can see, I just went over the track ever so slightly, so I have to give the position back to him, and that allows Sainz through as well. Obviously, I'm not really trying to race with Sainz. You see that Sainz is like he's like, I just want to clear these farmers as quickly as possible, basically. You know, I've got a Ferrari, I want to get back into the points, which is fair enough because he was he's the championship leader at this point. So I don't really blame him for wanting to just make as many quick moves as he can. Lap 17, Sainz is buggered off, but Albon is still firmly within my grasp. I've got a little bit of battery left. I'm trying to use as much of it as I possibly can to get past him, but he closes the door on me as we go on the run down to turn 9, and I just kind of have to bide my time. I still am looking up his inside, and that compromises my run through turns 9 and 10. And yeah, that means I'm not really close enough even through the DRS zone. And also, I've got no battery left, so I couldn't go for any overtake on him. So yeah, it's gonna be another lap or two before I'm able to have the run on him. I think I just need to save my battery, kind of stay within his DRS range, and see what I can do. Lap 20 now rolls around. And yeah, so Albon's still ahead at this point, and I'm thinking things are looking pretty bleak at this point. You know, I started 8th, and I'm down in P17, and I can't even get past the Williams, which I think Williams is still behind us in the power rankings, like the performance standings is what I was trying to say there. So really, I should be getting past him, but I do know, of course, the Williams has a Mercedes engine in the back of it, and we have a Renault engine in the back of our car, so maybe straight line speed isn't our forte. And you know, subsequently this section kind of favoured him, but I go up the inside through that I think that's turn 8, and then as we come into turn 9, I'm kind of got a run on him, and I'm on the outside for turn 9, keep my foot in it, and I just about managed to get ahead of him without extending at turn 10. So yeah, a pretty good move, all things considered, and I was pretty happy to finally get past him after, you know, 3-4 laps of staring at his rear wing. I think as we move forward here, oh actually no, I'm going to show you a replay of this overtake first. It's pretty good, you know. I just had some overspeed on him. I was committed to the line I was on. He had to give me the respect to not cut me off, and he did. And then as we got into turn 9, I was just alongside him enough to make this move stick around his outside. And yeah, I really love overtaking into that corner. There's something about the sort of sweeping left-hander there that makes it just a really satisfying move to pull off whenever you do it. So yeah, I was really happy with that. And now we're back where we were, and you can see that you know, Albon, despite the fact that I've overtaken him, he's definitely staying within range. And now I've got to sort of defend to him. He's closing me down in his DRS range. He actually pulls alongside. But this time I managed to do what I couldn't on lap 16, and I managed to just about stay ahead of him around the outside. And I burned a little bit of my battery there to keep him behind through the second DRS zone, and now I think I've just about done enough to kind of keep him at bay. But I'm sure, you know, with the DRS and with the superior straight line speed, he will probably try and mount another move on me at some point. That remains to be seen. Mark says he's starting to drop back, but as you'll see, he starts closing me down again through this section. I wonder if he's got a bit of his battery stored up or whatever. You know, I'm not dropping him at all. He closes me down by like nearly 3/10 through that whole complex, and then he's going to have DRS into turn 11. So I've really got to keep my wits about me if I want to keep him behind. He's not quite close enough to make the move, but you do see he comes very close. It's definitely not a confirmed P16 to me at this point. And now we're on lap 23. You see I've managed to just keep him behind, but the gap has not changed any. You know, he's still just as far behind as he was. And then I get the notification that Zhou Guanyu has had a retirement for some reason. I think he was actually closing down my teammate Christian Lundgaard, so this was good for Lundgaard's race, but sad for Guanyu Zhou, who you see he's closing him down here. He kind of sizes up a move through the DRS zone, and his engine just gives out, as Perez's did on lap 5. And yeah, that's I think that's the second DNF for Alfa Romeo this season, so a real shame for them. But yeah, not much you can really do when that happens. Kind of similar to Guan Yu Zhou's luck in real life, I imagine. I know one of the Alfa Romeos retired at Australia. I can't remember which one it was. I think it might have been Bottas, actually. Lap 28, if you look on the minimap, you can see there's a red dot behind myself and Albon. In this case, it's not Carlos Sainz pitting for a like 4th time. It's actually Charles Leclerc who was leading the race, actually having a much better weekend than he's been having so far this season on previous weekends. And he laps Alex Albon at the penultimate lap of the race. And I figured, the way I see it, if I let Charles Leclerc through now, that's just one less lap I have to drive in this sort of miserable P16 effort. So I let him through at turn 11 by taking the corner a bit wide. And I actually end up taking the penultimate corner a bit wide as a result. But I have enough battery saved up, and I get the DRS to Leclerc that Albon isn't a threat behind me, and subsequently, that's it.
And that's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Fermé.
P16, not really the result I was hoping for after a solid qualifying, but this is the pace of the car. You know, this is the true capability of this Jaguar racing car. And anything else is just, you know, luck. You know, P13, I got a bit lucky with DNFs and contact. And, you know, where I was in Saudi Arabia, I was falling back before I eventually had the mechanical failure.
That combination meant they got the absolute maximum out of their tyres at all times.
And here we are, a team that is no stranger to the podium, taking their place on top once again. A sublime race today, and a stunning win for Ferrari.
So yeah, there we go. That's the result. Leclerc first, Verstappen second, and Russell taking his first podium of the season in third. Very good recovery from him, given that he started P9, I believe. So he clearly made some money moves during the race. You know, I'm happy for him. I'm a fan of him. Maybe I'll even try and sign him in a future career mode. I actually had him signed in my previous My Team career mode last year, and he cost a lot of money by that point. So yeah, I think George Russell will end up driving for a good team no matter what happens.
Let's have a look then at the driver's standings. Carlos Sainz extends his lead at the top, getting ever closer to securing the championship. Let's focus on the driver of the day. Natalie Pinkham, come on, who do you pick?
Well, you've put me in a tight spot today, but I think I'll go for Pierre Gasly. He kept a cool head under pressure and made the very most of some difficult circumstances.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. Ferrari continue to extend the gap at the top of the table. There was also a strong showing from the Mercedes team today as they make their way up the standings. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport action. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.
Yeah, still no points, which is a shame, but you know, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to make that happen. Here we are in the highlights of the race. We get to see this pitiful start once again, which I really just I'd like to move on and forget this happened. I just get covered off by Bottas, and it just my pace after this point is just really shaky for the first lap. It takes me a little while, and you know, fortunately the game puts me out of my misery quite quickly. I think this is the attempted move on Latifi. The game's highlight system just seems to mock me. I go around the outside, get on the grass, and yeah, that just massively compromises me. Someone loses their front wing in the background there. I think that's got to be one of Latifi or Zhou Guan Yu, because those are the only people who I remember pitting as a result of what happens there, but it's not drastic enough. That was definitely Zhou Guan Yu in that case. Here we are. This is the attempted move on Vettel and Ricciardo, I believe. Well, is the game ever going to show me, you know, an actual move I make, like a good move? Because I do overtake Albon at some point during this race. It could show me that if it wants to. So yeah, it shows me going down the inside of the both of them, and then I just, yeah, move doesn't quite get made, which is unfortunate. Lap 10, I don't remember anything that happens on lap 10. This is going to be, yeah, I'm not even close to either of these guys. So this is just a lap of me just driving. Hey, well done. You drove around the track. Congratulations, man. Yep, there's the back of my car. Not really sure what the point in a highlight like that was, but clearly this is as interesting as the race got for me, according to the game's understanding. It showed me more of this like driving around than it showed me actually having cool wheel-to-wheel battles with people. Lap 15 into 16, it's going to show me getting overtaken by Albon, and then maybe also overtaken by Sainz, I assume. It's just showing me a misery compilation, that's all. Oh, and the highlights just end. Okay, well, I guess that's that then. Yeah, a pretty pitiful race weekend. I just kind of lose a bunch of positions. Only person I was able to overtake was a Williams. But, you know, sometimes it be like that. I knew my pace going into Australia wasn't going to be great. And qualifying was a false flag, I guess. So, yeah, that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you subscribe. And hopefully I will see you in the very next video.